Thank you very much for meeting with me today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Bonnie Harris, and I'm the manager of the Gander area SPCA.
Can you tell me about what happened on 9/11?
9/11 itself, I was here working at the shelter, and my husband had called me at the time when the first plane had hit the towers. He was watching the news, and he was telling me all about it, and as he was telling me, the second plane had hit, because he was thinking it was an accident, and he said, "Oh my God," he said, "this is not an accident." Anyway, we discussed it for a few minutes, and I was busy, and I had to go, so I continued on with my work until lunchtime. I picked up the kids at the school and pulled into the parking lot right next to Oz Fudge, and Oz was just monitoring speeders there, and I motioned for him to roll down his window, and I said, "Turn on your radio," and he was like, "Well, I don't know, turn on your radio." Anyway, within a couple minutes he heard it, and he took off. So I picked up the kids from lunch. We heard that the schools were going to be closed for the afternoon. Came back and called the airport and said, no, actually it was the morning. I called the airport the next morning, because we didn't know at that time how long the planes were going to be here, and I called the airport the next morning and was told, no, there's no animals on board. So I went home lunchtime, and my husband was like, "Did you call to see if there's any animals?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I was told there was none." And he said, "That's bull." He said, "I can guarantee you with 38 planes, there's animals on some of those planes." So he gave me the number to call for the right people, the ground handlers who had the manifest, and sure enough, yeah, there was animals on, I think it was 11 planes, 12 planes, and so I said, they've been on there 24 hours, and they may have been fasted previous to that, because a lot of people will fast their animals before they put them on flights. And I said, those animals are going to need care. And I said, "Do you need help?" And he said, "Yeah, definitely." So I called another one of our workers at the time, and one of our volunteers, and we packed up what we thought we would need, and cleaners and paper towels and food and water, and we just went up to the airport, and we were escorted out by the ground handlers to the planes that had animals on board. And I didn't realize how small a cargo hold is on a plane until we were up on the ladder and looking in, and I'm thinking, oh my God, like, we can't even move around here, and we have to take these animals out of the carriers with a bit of 4x4 floor area that we could stand on, and someone's got to hold them while the other person cleans the cage. And so we did that up until, oh my gosh, it was probably 2:30 in the afternoon, and we still hadn't done half the planes. And I got on an American airline, I think it was, that had a cat carrier there with pill bottle taped to the top. And I wasn't familiar with the drug, and I called our local vet, Dr. Tweedy, and spoke to his wife. He said he's out of town on a farm call, and she said, what's going on? And I said, "I'm at the airport. There's animals on the planes." And she said, "We called up. We were told there weren't any." And I'm like, "Yeah, I was told the same," but I said, "There." And so she said, "I'll get him to call you. He's on his way back." So he called 20 minutes later or so, and I gave him the name of the drug, and he said that's for seizures. The cat definitely needs it. And he said, I'll come up and give you a hand. Thank God he did, because at the time he was also the provincial vet, so he knew the government officials to call, because we knew that this could not continue. If these animals were here for any length of time, we could not do this every day. And so he spoke with Canadian Agri-Foods and got permission to take the animals off the plane. So when I went up in the evening, all the animals were taken off the planes. They were in a cargo area, and all the kennels were lined up, and it made it much easier that we didn't have to go climbing aboard. So my day consisted of, the following day was, I came to the shelter here early in the morning, cleaned and fed the animals here, left here, went up to the airport, cleaned and fed the animals up there, took them out for short walks around. The cats, we would actually take the cats and put them in a bathroom, so they could stretch their legs for a bit. while we cleaned their cages and put them back in. So I would do shelter early, then I'd go to the airport, I'd run home for something quick, bite to eat, come back to the shelter, do the cleaning down here again, leave here, go back up to the airport, go home for supper, and then go back up to the airport after probably 7 o'clock in the evening to take them out of their carriers again and walk them around and clean their cages. So that's for 5 days, that's basically what it was. The 2 bonobo monkeys that were there, that you know, everybody is so excited about these things. I didn't even know they were there until I went up that evening, and the animals were all taken out of the planes and put into the cargo hold, and there's these 2 big cages there with the bonobo monkeys in there. They had their handler with them, and he was very strict about what these monkeys were going to be eating, and he was very protective over them. I can remember going up the following day and bringing up some dried fruit to them, and there was a language barrier between myself and him, and I was trying to explain to him it's not candy, because he was thinking it was candy. Finally I got it through to him that it wasn't candy, and he allowed me to give them some of that. They would actually clean their own cages. They would pick up their feces and throw it outside their cage, so they were pretty clean, and you'd put, you know, they would put fresh hay in there for them. And we would walk into, I can walking into the cargo hold, and the dogs would start barking when they'd hear our voices. And when the dogs would start barking, the monkeys would actually start making, actually they're not monkeys, they're apes. They would actually start making noises too, and they were sort of mimicking the dogs. So yeah, it was 5 days of just non-stop. I had 3 children at the time, 8, 12, and 16. So my 16-year-old daughter was at the schools serving food. Her 12-year-old sister was taking care of her 8-year-old sister, and they would get games and bring things up to the school to bring up to the kids, up to the school, books and puzzles and stuff. And my husband is in the volunteer fire department. He also works at the airport. He was you know, taking passengers here and there, and so the full 5 days, like, we were in and out, and we'd see each other briefly, and so it was kind of hectic, but we did it.
Weren't you afraid to go to the planes?
Not at all. But I think about it after, and you know, these planes still had the luggage in the planes, and we didn't even think about that. That was also at the same time that mad cow disease was on the go in Europe, and those were things we didn't even think about until somebody actually mentioned to me, and I don't know if it was David and Irene that had asked me that same question, and I'm like, you know, we really didn't even think about it. Knew that the animals couldn't stay on these planes like they were, and just, you know, did what we had to do. But no, that wasn't even a thought. I do know there was one plane that still had passengers on it. That was an American Airlines, and there was a dog. There was a Doberman, or a Rottweiler, and she was not happy about strangers approaching her kennel. And so we're up on the ladder. They were still, like I said, on the plane. So we were up on the stairs, sort of scratching our heads, saying, you know, what are we going to do with this dog? We've got to take him out of the kennel. But he doesn't want us dealing with him at all. And passengers were looking at the plane window, and I didn't think about it until later. It was like, what were they thinking? Because here it is, you know, there's a ladder put up to their cargo hold, and there's these strange people just standing there looking into the cargo area where their luggage is. And so a stewardess actually came off the plane, and she asked, you know, what was going on, and the ground handler told her, you know, there's a dog on board that is being a little bit difficult, and we can't seem to get him out of the kennel. So she went back on the plane, and I guess the passengers were asking, and I'm just surmising because I don't know what actually happened, but I'm assuming she went back on the plane and told them what was going on, and one of the passengers identified that it was his dog, and they did allow him off the plane to come down to take the dog out of the kennel so that we could clean the kennel and put her back in.
And how many animals were there?
It seems like as the years go by, I keep losing track of how many there were. I think there was 11 dogs and 9 cats. There's about 18 animals. I'm thinking. Like I said, I'm losing track over the years.
Tell me about Ralph.
What's that?
Ralph, I think that's the name of that dog.
Oh, Ralphie. Yeah, Ralphie was he was an American Cocker Spaniel. He was a puppy. He was only about 12 weeks old. He was coming from overseas, Sweden, I think it was. And he was just the most adorable little puppy. And he just took it all in stride. We took him, once we got them out of the planes and into the cargo holds, in the evenings, in the area where the animals were staying, was also the ground handlers' areas. So I went in one morning, I think it was the 3rd or 4th day, and Ralphie just wasn't himself, and I'm like, geez, there's something not right here. And I called Dr. Tweedy and said, I'm at the airport, and Ralphie's not seeming himself. He's very lethargic, and I said he's not interested in eating. So Dr. Tweedy actually came up and took Ralphie and took him home, which I don't know if he was allowed to do, but he did. And he took him home and figured out that what was happening was the workers up there at night were giving him little bits of this and that lunch that they were having. May have been bologna or bits of sandwiches, and he just had an upset belly. So, but yeah, Ralphie's owner actually contacted us the first day, the second day, and he was frantic. He was down in Texas, and he was told the same thing I was, that there weren't any animals here, and but he did manage to track somebody down who said, yeah, there's animals on board and they're being taken care of by the SPCA. So he contacted us here at the shelter. I wasn't here when he called, but when I got back from the airport, the staff said, this guy called from Texas, and he was wondering if his dog is up there. It's a little Cocker Spaniel. And I thought, oh yeah, Ralphie is there. And so I called him back and just reassured him that he's doing fine, taking it all in stride. He was just a happy little puppy. So we kept in contact every day. He would call and check on Ralphie to see how he was doing. And yeah, so Ralphie ended up he went on to win American Champion later in his life. And just recently I spoke with a lady who actually adopted Ralphie after he had been finished doing his show thing. He was sort of retiring, and the gentleman who owned him had given him to another lady, and I just recently actually had contact with her through Come From Away show, and she sent me pictures of Ralphie as an old dog. He's since passed away, of course, but it was very, it was nice to see that he went on to lead a good life. Would have liked to had, hindsight 2020, we would have liked to have put little notes in the kennels and just said, email us, let us know that your pet got home okay. But it was such a busy time. We didn't even take pictures. I think we have one picture of Ralphie, and that's not a great picture. Yeah, so it would have been nice. There was one dog in particular. It was a Jack Russell mix, an older dog, and I'm partial to the senior dogs, and every time I'd walk into the cargo hold, she would hear my voice, and you could hear the kennel banging with her tail, banging back and forth, and she stole my heart. But and she was on British Airways, so it would have been nice, like I said, to know that they made it safe and sound to their destination. But we only actually heard from I think it was just Ralphie's owner that we actually knew that he got to his destination safe and sound.
What did it feel like when your town doubled population?
What's that? Sorry.
What did it feel like when your town doubled population?
Oh, it was so funny because you'd go to work. I'd come to work in the morning, and there'd be just people everywhere. Because that year it was absolutely beautiful. September we had the weather was just warm, and you'd go to work and there'd be all these people walking here down the roads, and it's like, oh yeah, they're playing people. that was kind of odd. In between, when I had a chance. In between going to the airport and working here, I would hear something on our local cable network saying, they're in need of fresh fruit. So I remember going home one evening and saying, okay, before I go to the airport, I'm going to drop off a bag of apples to to the centre, and I remember bringing it there, and they're like, "Oh, we can't take any more." And I was like, "Okay." Once they put in a call for something, it was like within an hour they had plenty of what they were looking for.
Can you tell me about your first meeting with David and Irene?
It was so funny because Oz Fudge had contacted me. Actually, it was through Oz. Irene and David are big animal people, and Irene felt it really important to have the SPCA in the show. And so Oz had called me and said, you know, there's a young couple here that they want to come down and talk to you, just doing a musical. Okay. Anyway, sweetest people. I think they got the stories they got because of their personalities. They're fantastic people. So they came down here to the shelter and introduced themselves and said, you know, we're doing we've got a grant. We're doing a musical. Okay, how are you going to write a musical on this? This is not your typical musical material. And anyway, when we finished the interview and when they left, I didn't really think much more other than, you know, they're doing some high school musical, and that's as far as this is going to go. And you know, I get an email, might have been, I don't know, a year later or something, saying that, okay, this is what we're doing now. I'm like, oh, geez, it's done bigger than what I thought it was going to. And then it's like, oh, we're going to Broadway. And it's like, oh my gosh. But they did come to in between. When they had the show completed, the original cast came to Gander, and you know, I still wasn't convinced that this was a fantastic idea or a fantastic musical, and I almost had to drag my husband to go to it. And anyway, we saw the show and we were totally blown away by how they represented Newfoundlanders. And you always have that worry as a Newfoundlander that somebody's going to overdo it with the accent or actions of Newfoundlanders, because Newfoundlanders have been portrayed sometimes as in not such a good light. And that was always a fear with Newfoundlanders, is you're sort of paranoid that, okay, yes, a mainlander or an American is going to play the part of a Newfoundlander. Like, how are they going to pull this off? When we saw the show, they more than pulled it off. We were blown away. Everybody in the audience was blown away by it. I don't think we expected what we saw. It was, like I said, I went into it very apprehensive, thinking, oh my God, like, how are they going to portray me? Like, but yeah, we were just totally blown away. I had a friend with me that evening too when we saw it here in Gander, and she said, "Oh my God," she said, "they have your character like spot on. Like that's you. Like that's I can see you doing stuff and saying stuff like that." Because normally I'm a pretty even-keeled person, and it takes a lot to get me riled up. And there's the the incident that they were saying, oh yeah, there's no animals. I'm like, yeah, right, no animals on board. So I just stepped it up and said, okay, well, there's got to be something that I can do, and I wasn't gonna take no for an answer. But there's limits to what you can do, of course. So I wasn't gonna do anything illegal if I couldn't get away with it. But we just did what we had to do.
How did it affect your life? Like all the come from away experience?
That's been crazy. That's been absolutely crazy. I've been to Toronto twice to see the show there, the opening show, the original opening show. We saw the Canadian cast open. I was in Seattle to see the touring cast. Just came back from the UK last month to see their cast, and there's another cast in Australia that we're going to be going to Australia in July. And I've never traveled that much in my life. I've been south down to Dominican and to Toronto. That's as far as I've gone. And my husband actually had never flown on a plane up until the Toronto show. The original cast opened in Toronto, and he always said, because we had heard rumors that, you know, they're going to be bringing us here and there to see the openings, and I said to him, he had the fear of flying, and I said, if we get invited to go to Toronto, I said, you promise me that you'll go. And he was like, yeah, because I think he thought that this wasn't going to happen. But it did happen, and yeah, we managed to get him on the plane, and we've traveled quite a bit since, so that's changed my life big time. Like I said, we've gone to a few places. He hasn't gone overseas with me yet, but we're working on that one. But we've been to Toronto a couple, 2-3 times now. We've been to Nova Scotia a couple times, and so it's nice to be able to take him places with me.
What was the most memorable moment?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. A couple of the incidents I know. Just there's little things that bring back memories to me. I know when I saw the show the first time, where they spoke about the bonobos throwing their feces out. I had actually completely forgot about that, and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, that's right, they did that. You know, some of the memorable moments in the show itself is just, I mean, we've been to the UK, and I think besides seeing the show over there, one of the biggest things in that trip was actually going to Stonehenge, and I've always wanted to see Stonehenge, so we got to you know, to go see Stonehenge. Down in Seattle, we went to the Seattle Needle, and just there's so many. There's nothing that I can say that not as of yet anyway. I don't know what Australia will be like, but in regards to the show, there's been so many things I can't pick one to say. This is the most memorable moment, but in the events itself, and again, it's we were so busy that week that it was just a really hectic week. We didn't have time to sit down and watch the news, and it was like go, go, go. And some of the memorable things up there, like, were the bonobo apes, of course, because it's not something you see in Gander, Newfoundland. That was very memorable. The little dog from British Airways, just little things. There's nothing major that I can say. It was all, you know, a combination of all these little things that made it a big thing.
Is there anything you would like to talk about?
Nothing in particular. I would love to, yeah, I shouldn't say that. I would love to thank the Come From Away show, the whole cast and crew, and David and Irene. They have done so much for our little shelter here. We've been in the process now for the last 5 years to get a new building. We had a large sum of money donated to us when a couple passed. And of course, with costs of building, we've been fundraising, and then like I said, we've been struggling with it. We had a really tough year last year when we ended up with distemper here at our shelters with our dogs, and we had to euthanize all our dogs here, puppies included, and that was very emotional. It was hard for everybody. I spoke to Irene during that time, and she was asking how things were going, and I said, you know, not great. We've just had a really rough summer. I said, we've got a vet bill that's like through the roof because of all the sickness we've had here, and I said, you know, it's just been really tough. And she said, oh, you know, she said, I can't change anything with what happened with the animals, but you know, we'll see what we can do to help you financially. So I said, you know, I don't expect you to do that. Whatever you donate would be appreciated. So this was the time the touring cast had started, and they decided that they were going to do some fundraising for our shelter, and they had figured that, okay, you know what, they had 6 weeks to do fundraising. Apparently they were allotted 6 weeks at a time to do fundraising, and they said, yeah, you know, we can raise $6,000 in 6 weeks. And they raised over $110,000 in 6 weeks and donated it to our shelter. So that is amazing. And like I said, this new shelter has been a long time coming, and a lot of people don't understand, like, why is it taking you so long? You've been this long, you had this large amount of money. What had happened was we put the plans, we put it out to tender, and it came back at $1.2 million. There was no way we were going to raise another $500,000. So we decided that we purchased a building, or we're in the process of purchasing it. And of course, lawyers aren't the fastest, so it's been dragging on and on. We're hoping that it is going to be started this year. The renovations are going to be started this year. But we can't thank David and Irene and the whole cast crew, the production companies. They have been phenomenal to our shelter. It's been unbelievable.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is the end of the interview.